Tell us your name and tell us about your project.
My name's Edwin Hubble, and I'm an early 20th century astronomer. By using the 100-inch Hooker telescope, the largest telescope in existence at that time, we were able to expand upon the discoveries of many brilliant scientists and were able to answer many questions regarding the unknown of the universe in which we live in.
What were you guys trying to do or find?
One of the most troubling questions at this time was, what are nebula? By using the Hooker telescope, we were able to study the Andromeda Nebula. In doing so, we found some of the stars contained were Cepheid variables. These Cepheid variables, changing brightness, allowed me to determine their periods. I then applied the period-luminosity relationship in order to calculate the distance. Another question we were trying to solve was if these galaxies moved. I spent a lot of time studying the spectra of galaxies. By looking at the shift of these spectral lines, I was able to determine that those that blue shifted were in fact moving towards us. However, a majority were red shifted, which meant that they were moving further away.
Where did the project or experiment occur?
My initial interactions with nebula occurred at the Yerkes Observatory in Wisconsin, but it was when I got my position at Mount Wilson in California where I made most of my discoveries. We began doing research in 1923, and by 1929, I had gained all the evidence I could.
What other significant events were happening around the world at this time?
At this time, the world was experiencing the effects of the end of the Great War, which would later be called World War I. America at the time was experiencing a booming economy and thriving in the Roaring '20s. Women's suffrage was in full swing, and they indeed gained the right to vote. With prohibition intact, bootlegging became very popular, and speakeasies were a regular hangout. We also saw advancement in technology and medicine, with the addition of many wonderful things such as a refrigerator and penicillin.
Who else was involved in the project?
There were many great minds who came before me. I expanded on the work of Henrietta Swan Leavitt, who discovered the Cepheid variables have a period-luminosity relationship. I also expanded upon the work of Vesto Slipher, who began measuring the Doppler shift of spectral lines in 1912. Milton Humason aided me in my findings and in expanding the observations of these brilliant men.
What was your role in the project?
My role was as head astronomer. I observed, recorded, and analyzed all of our data, and was able to reach several amazing conclusions which influenced the modern world.
What impact did your project have on the physics community?
I had a tremendous influence on the physics community. Because of me, we now know that these nebula are actually galaxies. I was able to find that these galaxies are moving farther and farther away from one another, and that the further away they are, the faster they are moving. In fact, my distance-velocity relationship of the galaxies has been named Hubble's Law. Due to my discoveries, I was able to prove that we live in an ever-expanding universe. Since we know that it is in fact expanding, we know that at one time it had to have been concentrated at a specific point. My research led to the idea of the Big Bang Theory and has provided knowledge on being able to better calculate the age of our universe.
What was your motivation for doing this research?
As an undergrad, I studied mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy, and earned my degree with a Bachelor of Science in 1910. But my curiosity and love for astronomy led me to pursue my master's degree, which I earned in 1914. As a graduate student, I studied stars at the Yerkes Observatory in Wisconsin, where I began to study faint nebula. After gaining my doctorate in astronomy in 1917, I was offered a position with the Mount Wilson Observatory, and I never looked back.
Thank you for your time, Edwin.
Okay, thanks for having me.